Hey, Josh here,
Hey, and this is Mike.
and this is Must See Before You
Before you
Die.
die.
That's right. And today we're going to be reviewing one of my favorite all-time horror slasher movies. This is in my top movies, and that is 1996's Scream, and it's a Wes Craven movie. He directed this, and Kevin Williamson wrote this screenplay. He also ended up he wrote another one after this. It was I Know What You Did Last Summer, but he also did like Dawson's Creek and some other stuff. He was pretty popular around this time for like teenage stuff. But yeah, the movie is rated R, and I kind of want to bring up this real quick before we get into the movie. The Rotten Tomato score is an 80% by the critics and a 79% by the audience. So we'll see what me and Mike's score is after we talk about the movie. But it's pretty high. It's pretty high, in my opinion, for sure. This movie has an incredible opening scene, Mike. Incredible.
Smacks you in the face right off the bat.
What horror movie that you can think of, or slasher even, has an opening scene like this that predates Scream? None.
Yeah, I can't think of a whole lot.
Nope.
This right here was the type that with the first 6, 7, 8 minutes of it, it sucks you in right off the bat. I mean, you're sucked in right off the bat.
Well, it's a girl that's, and also Drew Barrymore plays the part of the first girl, and she had the part of Sydney, but I think like what they say, like three or 4 weeks before shooting, she changed her mind and said, "No, I will take this part instead." So they had to like recast it like quickly, and so, but yeah. I love this. The whole phone call, like the conversation. She doesn't expect anything like out of the usual, just some kind of like lonely guy or whatever. Some guy accidentally called her, and she's just talking to him. And I love how he asks her about like horror movies, like what's your favorite scary movie? That's great. Like, what's your favorite scary movie? And they talk about Halloween. I think they talk about like Freddy Krueger and
Friday
stuff.
13th.
Friday 13th, and yeah, it's great. And then it turns really the best part, like the jaw dropping part is she says, "Why do you ask him all these questions?" And he says, "Because I want to know who I'm looking at." And you're like, "Huh?"
Yeah, that's the turning point in the movie so far, because there's a little bit of a flirtatious part. It doesn't start that way, but then she starts kind of flirting with him a little bit, and he's asking all these questions. Then when he asks that question right there, then she says, "What did you just say?" And he's like, he changed what he said the second time. And I was like, whoa. But when he first said that, I was like, damn, he's either in the house with her or he's watching her.
Yeah, and it was great. And Drew Barrymore knocks this scene as Casey Becker she knocks it out, in my opinion. They do have her boyfriend beat up. His name's Steve, and they have him beat up and tied up. And he says, and Ghostface on the phone says, "I want to play a game." And so she has to ask her questions. And Mike, you're totally froze. Just letting you know.
Okay, my back.
Okay, you're back now. You're back.
Okay.
Okay, and you were like blurry as heck and froze at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, he says, "I want to play a game." He asks her a question. She answers it correctly. She asks who the killer was in Halloween. She says Michael Myers. He does ask her a question. The next question, for Steve to live, he says, "Who was the killer in Friday the 13th?" And she says, Jason was the killer. I know it. And he's like, "Wrong. If you knew that, you know that Mrs. Voorhees was the killer. Jason wouldn't come up to the sequels. And she was like, you tricked me, you tricked me. And he's like, oh, well, Steve's gotta go. And dude, they ripped Steve wide open. And
Man, guts are everywhere.
yeah. And I guess in the non-rated one, not the rated R, but the non-rated, like they showed just guts falling out of his guts, but they had to, or out of his stomach, but they had to cut it because it wasn't, appropriate or whatever.
Right.
So, she gets away. She's running outside. She ends up hitting Ghostface with a phone. All this stuff.
That's
He
what I thought
catches
was
up
kind
to
of
her.
funny. She's running away from Ghostface, and she's got that digital phone with her. Back in the day, you used to have the wireless phones, and she's just carrying it with her the whole time. And I'm like, I don't know that I'd be carrying my wireless phone with me the whole time, but it's kind of
Well, she
comical
dropped the
going back.
knife. She dropped the knife that she had. So she ends up, fighting him, but he does stab her in like right here, and then he stabs her like through the throat with the knife. And
what I think's awesome about this scene though is that her parents are coming back home, and they're like
yes,
walking in the front door while he's at the
yes.
same time, stabbing her and killing her right in the back. I mean, I thought it was really
Yeah, and the parents go to use the phone, and the mom can hear her struggling to breathe, and
right.
it is like I'm telling you, Mike. I know there's a lot of good slasher movies, but none of them start like this, in my opinion. I mean, this is phenomenal, just to set the tone, and yeah, great. And she ends up dying. He hangs her from the tree or whatever, and her parents find. So that's 2 deaths, like really quick in the movie, Mike. Steve and Casey are dead.
Within the
Boyfriend,
first
girlfriend.
6 or 7 minutes, right?
Right. So, and I guess there was like a lot of, they really put it out there that Drew Barrymore was like in this movie, and they kind of put it out there that she was almost like a lead. I don't know, because I was young then. I didn't pay attention to that. But I guess they kind of put it out there like she was a lead character. So then when people wouldn't see the movie, they're like, wait, Drew Barrymore's dead? Within like freaking 10 minutes? Like people were shocked by that, I guess, Mike. That's what I was like watching. Or that I was listening to from this other person that was talking about it. That people were shocked by that. But then after that, you meet
plus they used Drew Barrymore because she was really popular, and they were trying to get the young girls invested in this movie as well, instead of just young boys only on a horror slasher movie. So she was pretty popular around the time too.
Right. So you meet the main cast after this at school or whatever, and you have Billy, Stu, Randy, Tatum, and Sydney. And that's like the main cast. Tatum and Stu are dating. Randy's kind of like the nerdy movie dude who knows a lot about movies. Sydney's kind of like the girl next door type, kind of shy or whatever. But you learn that her mother was actually murdered almost a year before this. So like it's kind of like bringing all these bad memories up to her. And Billy is Sydney's boyfriend.
Yeah.
So he's got like, Billy Loomis has like the greasiest freaking hair, man, through this whole freaking movie, dude. Like his hair is greasy as heck. Personally, I'm a fan of Stu. The guy's funny, dude. He's always like sticking his tongue out and like just acting real goofy. I just like the guy. He's funny. And then I commented a part where they're talking and Randy says, I heard they found her liver in the mailbox. Did they find her liver in the mailbox? And Stu said, hey, man, leave her alone.
Leave her alone, yeah.
No, he says liver alone.
Leave her alone.
He's making a joke about the liver. But yeah, I thought that was a funny part. But you kind of get to know the dichotomy of the group of friends there. They're all kind of like, they're talking about the murders and like if a girl could do it, because Tatum goes, why couldn't the killer be a woman? And they're just kind of talking about like the dichotomy of the group. I kind of like that little scene. Then another scene that I really like is when Sydney is home alone and the killer calls her, and she isn't afraid of this person. She calls the killer's bluff. I mean, he's like, oh, I'm looking at you or something. And she's like, well, what am I doing now? And she's like picking her nose and like, joking around. And she's like, okay, because she thinks it's Randy just joking around, pulling her leg. and turns out the killer is actually in her house, Mike, already. And they have like a little chase scene, and he flies up the stairs. And she actually was talking about that. She's like, "Oh, I hate slasher movies, basically, because it's some freaking ditzy girl that should be running out the front door, but she runs upstairs where you can't get out, like, and you die." But she actually does that. She has to run
Yeah.
up the stairs, and um, she has a thing. This is her house, and she has a thing where a door. She has like a door, a closet door that can like block the door, so it does. She can't, the killer can't open it. Um, and she's like using her computer to call 911, but like I don't even know if the internet speed would have been like fast enough back then to do that. I know it could, but it would probably take longer. Killer leaves. All of a sudden, her boyfriend Billy comes through the window, and he's like, "Everything's okay." And then all of a sudden, a cell phone drops out of his pocket, and she's like, "Wait, you?" Like, she automatically thinks you're the killer, so she runs downstairs. We meet. Well, we don't. I think we already met him. I don't know, but we do meet Officer Dewey, who's a main character, who is Tatum's brother, and he's like he's like not he's like the deputy, um, and
He's like a Barney Fife in a way. I mean, he
yeah,
kind of.
he's kind of like he wants to be taken very seriously, but he's just a goofball.
Yeah, his sister keeps telling him, Dewey. He's like, I'm deputy.
Yeah, it's funny. Um, but yeah, I love that. And then Billy gets taken to jail for this because they don't know who's doing the killings. So like any lead that they could have, and then they're like, I thought it was funny because they are interrogating Billy, and they're like, why did you have a cell phone on you, son? It's like funny, like to think like back then it wasn't that common,
I actually had that same thing down that said they asked Billy Loomis, what you got a cell phone for, boy?
Yeah,
Nowadays, everybody's got a cell phone, but back then, I mean, you didn't really, not everybody carried one.
right. So, there's a character that I didn't talk about either. That's a main character, and that's Courtney Cox plays Gail Weathers, who is like she works for like a tabloid type like news like show that were like popular back then. I don't know. I didn't really watch that kind of stuff when I was a kid, but like like the sensationalized stories, and they're always looking for some kind of juicy story to post and stuff.
Kind of like
And
TMZ now.
yeah. And she is actually writing a book about Sydney's mother's death, and she's trying to get a man named Cotton Weary free because Sydney fingered him as the killer of her mother back then. And Gale Weathers is trying to prove that he wasn't, or write a book about it anyway, even though Cotton Weary's actually going to get the death penalty for the murder of Sydney's mother. But I want to talk about how much I love this Ghostface costume, Mike.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
mean,
think about
I
it?
can't think of another. I can't think of another slasher movie back then that. I mean, I think it's a great figure. It's a great costume. I mean, it's kind of iconic now. I mean, there's they get ready to come out with number 6 now. So there's been 5 previous movies, but it's a creepy, scary looking mask. I mean,
Love
it's
it.
yeah, I think it's unique. It's not it's not a hockey mask. It's not a Michael Myers mask, but it's still pretty darn spooky.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like it a lot. And the thing I like about it was in the movie they say like they sell these at every five and dime. No way we can track it. Like these are sold everywhere. So like you can't track it down. You know what I mean? Um like I said, the Ghost Face out I love. Um I had it down that Tatum is talking to Sydney at one point and she goes, "Yeah, you don't, like you don't want to end up like one of those girls in a Wes Carpenter flick." She confuses two famous horror movie directors. Like instead of John Carpenter or Wes Craven, she says Wes Carpenter
Yeah.
flick, and I thought that was funny.
So this movie adds a
Um,
lot of comedy to it. I mean, throughout the whole thing. I mean, it's a slasher horror flick, but it probably adds a little more comedy than
yeah,
um.
definitely.
and then most slasher movies I've seen in the past. Slasher movies in the past, back in the 80s and in the early 90s, was pretty much just slashers, and it was young teenage horny kids that are, there's young teenage horny kids in this one too. But this one, they make some good jokes. It's some good. Uh, it's a little bit of a mixture of both. Whereas some of the older ones are mainly horror flicks, and you hear a few jokes here and there. This one's pretty much 50-50 most of the movie until the
Yeah,
very end.
that's right.
And
Yeah.
even at the very end, there's some pretty funny, sarcastic jokes mixed in at the end. I like it.
Yeah, I like it. Another one of my favorite scenes is when Stu and Randy are talking at the video store where Randy works, and they're kind of talking about who they think is the killer, and Randy thinks it's Billy. Randy said, "Well, isn't that kind of bad for a guy that's convicted of a killer to hang out in the horror section?" He says that, and Stu thinks it's thinks it's Sydney's father, who they
Yep.
can't find, they can't locate. And I think it's funny. And man, Billy is just like creepy in this scene to me. He's just like basically threatening Randy, in my opinion. I mean, he is. But he's creepy, and he says, "I didn't do it," whatever. Oh, and then they play that song right after this, that Red Right Hand, Mike. I love that song. It kind of became like the official theme of Scream. Like, it played in every one except for, I think, 4, but it's played in every single Scream movie since then. But I love that song, that Red Right Hand. I think that's a really cool song, Mike.
Yep.
And I like it. The town's closing up. Oh, the one thing that I thought was funny was like Ghostface was in like a grocery store with Tatum and Sydney somehow. Like, how's he not spotted in the daylight in the store when everything's closing down? Like, that didn't make no sense to me. Unless it was just like a random person wearing the outfit. You know what I mean? Because they did that in the school too. They had like guys running up and down the hallway wearing a Scream mask, and the principal got ticked off at them because it was being insensitive.
Speaking of that, I wrote that down in my notes. Henry Winkler, the Fonz, plays the principal.
Yeah.
And I loved Henry Winkler in this. I thought he was great. He was a badass until he finally got it. But I liked him as a principal. And one thing I thought was funny was in the movie, like he touches Sydney's face, like when she's like, it doesn't mean it doesn't creepy, but he still touches her face and like moves it towards the police officers when they're asking her questions. And I thought, man, dude, that you couldn't do that nowadays. But
did you notice there's one part with him where he like looks in the mirror and fixes his hair like the Fonz or something?
Yeah,
I thought that was.
little things like that, comedic wise, are throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, and then did you also notice the thing where he's like, "You little shits," and then he goes, and then the janitor's like, "What'd you call him?" And he's like, "Not you, Fred." And the guy's dressed like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
That's right. That's actually Wes Craven dressed up.
Oh, okay,
as that.
okay.
Yeah. Yes. So, what do I have next? I said, because the cops at this point think, Dewey and the sheriff, they think it's Sydney's father because the phone calls that they traced were coming from Sydney's father's cell phone. So they're like, well, we can't find him, but he's a pretty good suspect at this point. I wrote this down. This has a phenomenal third act. Like when this party starts at Stu's house, Mike, incredible. This movie, like the first act and the third act of this movie is awesome. And the second act, even in the middle, isn't bad though. I mean, lots of story building, this movie is great at a whodunit. Personally, when I watched this movie for the first time, I didn't know who the killer was. I didn't know, I mean, of course, this is spoilers. Turned out there's 2 killers. I had no clue there was 2 killers in this movie, Mike. Did you?
Yep. Nope.
No.
When they started running through the house, I kind of wondered a little bit when I remember the first time I ever watched it. I kind of wondered a little bit, but no, I didn't know that it was 2.
Right. So the third act of this movie is incredible. It takes place at Stu Macher's house, like a big school party. And I said Stu's house is a great backdrop. They actually go back to this in the 5th movie. They go back to Stu Macher's house, which was really cool for like older fans like me that have watched it, since the beginning. It's really cool to see that. I said I really like Stu's look in this, where he has that like Hugh Hefner like smoking jacket on. Did you remember that? He
Yeah,
had like that Hugh Hef, and I really enjoy Tatum's death in this, where she's trying to get out that doggy door of the garage.
I love the shirt she was wearing.
Oh, Mike! Yeah, Tatum's nice looking, no doubt about that. But
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that some things were bought but to be in that scene. She was a young girl though. But yeah,
yeah,
the death with the garage door.
yeah,
That's good.
I like where she's like, because because they're wearing the Ghostface costume, and she's like, "Oh, can I be one of your victims in the movie?" Like joking around because she thinks it's Randy, and she's like, "Lose the costume, dude. Sydney's gonna freak out." And
You got to
and
bring up them all watching though the OG Halloween
yeah, they
in
are
the living room. That's what I love about it.
right. That, in my opinion, that movie isn't as good as this one, but we'll talk about that at another time, I think.
No.
Um, but yeah, if Halloween didn't crawl, Scream couldn't walk, right? I mean,
But listen to
I
this.
get
This is what's so great about what I thought was great about these scenes in this is with scenes that happened in Halloween and they're watching it on TV, little things were happening in the house during a party at the same time. Like all of a sudden you'd hear the Halloween music and the da da dun, and then all of a sudden you'd see Ghostface walk up behind them or something. I mean, if you this movie is one of those that you have to watch, in my opinion, multiple times. It was the first time I'd watched it in a while, and I probably want to go back and watch it again tomorrow. Um, but little things like you see, like the Freddy Krueger or Halloween in the background, or the Fonz fixing his hair like he did back in Happy Days, or um, the little comments that Dewey makes are hilarious with him flirting with Courtney Cox, the character in the movie.
yeah,
I think it's really good movie.
right. And I love this part where after Tatum dies, they Randy is sitting with a bunch of people watching Halloween, and he goes, "Yeah, they didn't follow the rules." And they're like, "What rules?" And he's like, "Wait!" And he gets up and pauses the movie, and he goes, "You guys don't know the rules to survive a horror movie?" I mean, this is a great scene, Mike, to me, because like I think this is something that everybody's always talked about, but no one's ever pointed it out in a movie, Mike. No one's ever pointed that out in a movie.
Nope.
And so the rules are this: according to Randy, how to survive a horror movie. Rule number one: you can never have sex. You can never have sex because if you're not a virgin, you will die. Um, Number two: no drinking or doing drugs. It's an
Yep.
extension of number one. It's a sin. You can't do it.
This is called the moral
Um,
values.
that's right. And number three: never say you'll be right back because you won't be back. But then Stu says, "I'm gonna go get another beer. You want one?" And he goes, "Sure." And he goes, "I'll be right back."
Yeah.
I thought that was funny, especially what we learned later.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So Billy and Sydney actually go upstairs, and Sydney is the main girl. She's the final girl. And Billy's been trying to get in her pants the whole freaking movie, and he finally does. They do have sex, and Billy's actually like, she still thinks Billy's the killer. Like, part of her still thinks that.
Yeah. Why do you
And
knock boots with a guy and then as soon as you get done, you're putting your clothes on, you start really drilling him on questions? I mean,
yeah. Well, and it ticks him off. And then all of a sudden, here's Ghostface behind him and stabs Billy. And Billy falls to the ground. And he does a dramatic Sydney like that. And she runs. Ghostface is chasing her. Ghostface is chasing her all over. She falls out a window onto a boat or
a
whatever.
boat.
Yeah. And yeah, a big, awesome chase scene. A bunch of stuff happens. We don't need to all go into all that. But literally at this party, the only people left are Dewey, Gail Weathers, Randy, Billy, Stu, and Sydney. That's it. That's all that's left. And we learn
Well, her
that,
dad, you get her dad at one point too.
oh, her dad's later. But they come in, or Billy comes down. He's like, "Oh, Sydney, I'm okay. I'm okay." And he takes the gun. Sydney has a gun. She got it from Dewey because Dewey got stabbed. And Gail Weathers got in a car accident because she's trying to drive away. And he shuts the door, and Randy said, "Oh, Stu's gone mad," and Billy looks at him and he goes, "We all go a little mad sometimes." And boom, shoots Randy right in the shoulder, and that's the reveal. Billy Loomis is the killer, and Sydney runs into Stu, and she's like, "Stu, help me!" And Stu has the thing, and he goes, Stu says, "Surprise, Sydney." And Stu is the second killer. So Stu and Billy have been the killers through all this. I don't know which one have killed who. A guy actually did a video on YouTube, Mike, explaining who the killer was at each kill and who was under the ghost. It was a really cool video. But yeah, so Billy and Stu are the killers. They explain Billy wants to do all this because him and Stu actually killed Sydney's mother, because Billy's mother left Billy and his father because of the affair that Billy's father had with Sydney's mother, and they framed Cotton Weary so then he would be, be convicted of it instead. And Stu basically just did it to go along because he liked Billy. He was friends with Billy, and he just wanted to do it. Peer pressure. And there is some funny parts. They start stabbing each other because they listen.
It's funny, but they're sick too.
I like it where he's like, nowadays you need a sequel. That's what Stu says, and so they want to play in the sequel, I guess. And they're stabbing each other because they're gonna be left for dead, and a bunch of stuff happens. Oh, one of my favorite parts is where like Stu's on the phone and he's like, because Sydney gets away and she has the voice changer, and Billy's looking for her, and he talks to Sydney and he's like, "Did you really call the cops?" And she's like, "You bet your ass." And he goes, "My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me."
Yeah.
I think that's funny, Mike. That's really funny. What do you think about this?
Man, you stabbed me too much. I'm losing too much blood, man. I'm gonna faint.
And then Billy's like, "Get up!" And he throws the phone at him, and he goes, "You hit me with a phone, dick." That's funny. But yeah, so Sydney ends up getting Billy and hitting him with an umbrella. She kills Stu. Well, kills Stu. He might be alive still. We don't know. There's a lot of rumors that he might be in Scream 6. I don't know that to be sure, but maybe. She actually tips over a huge freaking
big Halloween TV. The TV had Halloween on it come crashing down.
Yeah, the CRT TV. The back in the day when they're big and heavy. She put that on his face and gets electrocuted. And Billy ends up shooting Billy in the head. Yeah. So he's dead, no doubt about it.
Well, what's funny about that too is the other guy, Randy, goes, "Well, this is the part where in all the horror movies, the killer comes back to life or something." And then as soon as he says that, he did, and then she shot him right between the eyes.
Yeah, yep. And then the movie ends. I mean, what do you think of that? What do you think of that third act, Mike? Honestly, like from the reveal of the killers to everything that's going on in the party. What do you think?
To me, it's a very solid movie. I mean, the beginning's awesome, the end's awesome, the middle's kind of building things up. I really enjoyed watching it. I've probably seen it 10 times, but over the last 20 years, but it makes me want to watch it again just to catch some of the little things in it. And if you're a fan of horror movies and some of the classics like I am, I think you'll enjoy this movie because it makes a lot of references. Like they start talking about Jamie Lee Curtis being the Scream Queen, and how she never shows her boobs until Trading Places or something. I don't know. Little things, references to other horror movies throughout. They made a reference to one of my all-time favorite movies, The Town That Dreaded Sundown. They bring that up in this movie, which was about a serial killer that was killing people and had killed some babysitters. I think it's a very solid movie.
Yeah, they also in the video store, a girl asked Randy, "Where's the Howling at? The werewolf movie? Yeah, where's that at?" And he knows exactly where. I mean, how many movies bring up that movie? I mean, that was a decent '80s horror movie.
The guy that wrote this, and I think I'm sure Wes Craven had a lot of maybe tweaked some things here and there along the way on it. The movie is very well shot. It's not a cheap, low budget movie like Halloween. No. The original Halloween was a low budget movie. this movie, you can tell they spent some money on it. Is really well directed.
Oh, and
They spent some money. It's got quality actors in it. I mean, it's a good
Nev
movie.
Campbell really did a good job as Sydney too. She's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
Yep. And I like David Arquette a lot as Dewey. I think he's a good actor too. I really like David Arquette.
Crushed me when they killed him off in the last one, but
yeah. Well, you know, he was actually originally supposed to die in this first one. They did 2 takes, Mike. So in the first take, they cart him off like on a thing, and he's dead. The other one was what you saw in the movie where he gave a thumbs up. And then he didn't know which one Wes Craven was going to use in the final thing. So he didn't know if his character was alive or dead. So, but yeah, I love this movie. For me, this movie is a 5 out of 5 ghost faces, Mike. 5 out of 5 ghost faces, my friend.
Well, not so fast, my friend.
Yeah.
I do like this movie a lot, Josh. It is a really good movie. I'll give it probably a 4.25 to 4.5, which is pretty high in my book. I don't give anything a 5. I will give you your due. It's better than Halloween in many, many ways. I'm still partial to Halloween.
Sure.
But I love the references to the horror movie and the horror genre in this movie.
Right.
And then they tried to come out with, what was the other comedies where they were making fun of Scream? What was it called?
Scary Movie. Those are great.
Scary movies.
They're funny.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, I mean, Scream is the real deal. I can't wait to see number 6 coming up too.
Yeah, I can't wait for number 6. And
I think it's got Ortega back in it, right? So I mean, they got some really cool characters in that one. So yeah, I definitely go back and see this movie if it's been many years since you've seen it. I think you'll love it.
Well, I like how they use the voice changer too, Mike. I mean, the that voice is iconic now, and that's actual guy's voice. It's not like the people that are doing the part, but I love that the voice changer like to use, and it's in every movie since then, the same voice changer. And like I said, I can't kind of wait to deep dive into this series because it's been a long time since I've seen number 2 and all of those. So yeah, so I guess I just said it, but so the next movie we review is going to be Scream 2. So Scream 2 is coming up next. Mike, where can people catch us on Facebook?
Man, just do a Facebook search, and I'll try to put it in the description of this video here. But check out on Facebook, Must See Before You Die Horror Community. I think it's Horror Community, right, Josh?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Hey, we just started this Facebook group, so it's going to be anything to do with horror genre. It could be collectibles, movies, reviews, anything horror related, and that's what we're keeping everything about. Not all this other junk, but yeah, join there, hit an invite. We'll accept you in there, and let's talk horror movie stuff.
Yes, no doubt. And also like, comment, subscribe here. We're gonna be back now. I mean, well, we were always here, but we're gonna be doing the Scream series up until Scream 6 comes out, because I will be seeing that in the theater, Mike. Probably. If not opening day, opening weekend for sure. And we definitely will do a review of that movie, what we think, like a quick one. But we're definitely going to be covering up until then. I don't know how many. I think that's at least to number 3 that we're going to do up to that movie comes out. Yep. So I'm excited about that, dude. Number 3, a little spoiler, number 3 really shakes up changes what happens in this movie, Mike, a little bit. I don't know if you've seen number 3.
Yeah, I have. It's been many years ago.
Okay, well, it kind of puts a spin on what this movie kind of how this movie came about. So, once we get there, we will talk about it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Scream 2. Scream 2 is the second horror movie I ever saw in a theater. The first one being I Know What You Did Last Summer. I saw I Know What You Did Last Summer in a theater, and then Scream 2, my dad actually took me and my sister to see Scream 2 in the theater. So I have really fond memories of Scream 2. So I can't wait till we get to that one.
Awesome. Hey, so please like, comment, subscribe. Tell us what you think. Do you like Scream? Are you looking forward to Scream 6? What do you like about this series? And please hit us up on Facebook. Must See Before You Die Horror Community. Josh, you have a good one, man.
Hey, you too, buddy.
All right. Bye.
See ya.